Welcome back to the Awakening Women podcast. I'm your host, Leanne Oaten, and in this episode, we're chatting about the bare minimum. And the reason why I think this is a super important thing to get straight is that many of you are settling for below the bare minimum. Many of you are fighting just to get scraps of bare minimum treatment that you should be getting from a relationship partner. We get into relationships and we're not clear on what it is that we want. Many of us got into relationships in our 20s. We got married, had some kids, got a house, and then we realize that we've given up our career. We may have chosen to be a stay-at-home mom, or maybe we continue to have our careers while raising kids on top of it. And you're at you reach the point where you're in your 40s, your late 40s, or maybe 50s, and you're realizing that this relationship is just not meeting your needs. And this is what a lot of women realize when they come into my program, because we do a lot of work around this. And many, I'd say all of them, I've never worked with a woman that got to this part of my program and was like, oh, I mastered this. I already know what I need. I know what I want in a partner. I know what I want. No, it's like a foreign concept because you're too busy trying to meet and please your partner, meet your partner's needs and be what you think that they need you to be, that you've completely lost sight of who you are, what you want, and what you need. And so you ask yourself, why am I in this relationship? That's a first question to ask yourself. And many times it's the financial convenience, it's because you have kids, and because you have a house, and because there's a lot of unknowns, and you don't want to break up your family, and all of those. I think every single woman battles with those very same places when they're considering whether to stay or leave a relationship. But what I want to talk with you about in this edition of the podcast is recognizing that you are fighting every day to get scraps of bare minimum from your partner. And so let's talk about a few things. Now, this list is not exhaustive, but a few things that are considered bare minimum. And this is really helpful to know when you are down the road considering dating. You need to have your non-negotiables set. You need to know the things that you're no longer willing to settle for again. And so doing this work while you're in a relationship is wonderful to do. It's never too late. And again, if we were doing this kind of work in our 20s, when we get into a relationship and get married, I think we would have a lot less of these divorce rates because we're getting into relationships in our 20s when we don't even know ourselves. We have not asked ourselves, what is it that I want in a partnership? And how is this relationship going to benefit me in a positive way? We're not asking any of those things. What do I have to offer? What do I want to offer a partner? And what do I want in return in a relationship for my investment of time, energy, love, attention, devotion, commitment? What do I want in return for that? And it's not that it's a transactional thing, but we don't ask ourselves these questions. We ask more questions when we're going to go buy a new shade of makeup at Sephora, or when we're trying out new perfume scents, like reading the ingredients to make sure there's no hormone disruptors in them. Like we put more thought and effort into those kinds of things than we do with a relationship, and we often just fall unconsciously into a relationship that is a match for our wounding and our past patterns. So let's talk about some bare minimum things that this means, that this should be the bare minimum of what you would expect to have come from a relationship. Now, of course, it goes both ways. So if you're not exhibiting any of these traits, then you have to take a look at yourself. But I know, and this also brings the polarity conversation as well, which I'm not going to go too far into, but like things that women who want a more traditional dynamic, or they want the polarity where the man is primarily in his masculine, he's doing the leadership and he's doing certain aspects of the relationship and she's doing other aspects, that doesn't mean that there's this line in the sand where you're not working together. So again, this goes into, again, your relationship needs and what you want. And then asking yourself, like, am I even getting this bare minimum? Like, this is like the bars on the floor, because this should just be what every relationship includes. Number one, sensitivity to your feelings. So this means that if they make a joke, they say something you don't like, they make a comment that you find offensive or that makes you close down or that hits you the wrong way for whatever reason, it does not matter what the reason is, you didn't like it. Are they sensitive to your feelings? Do they listen to you calmly? Do they seem to be trying to understand and want to understand why you feel the way that you do? You know, to a degree, men are not going to sit there and talk about emotions and deep feelings like you're going to do when you're speaking to your best girlfriends. They're not, it's not that they're incapable or that they have no emotion. It's not it at all, but it's not their dominant way of relating. They are more in the logic. So is he trying at least to understand? Is he apologizing and then correcting himself? Is he apologizing and then not doing it again, or doing his very best to change certain things? At least, right? And again, this is not about wanting to change a person from the ground up and mold them. This just means that in a relationship, either partner can say something that maybe hits the other one the wrong way. We both go into relationship with sensitivities, raw spots, places where when they're touched, it's annoying or irritating, or it can trigger sadness, or it can trigger disconnect. And again, this can go back into our attachment styles and the traumas that we've experienced. But regardless, the very bare minimum is having a partner that has some sensitivity to your feelings. The next one is you can have a disagreement without it getting ugly. So it is not, in my opinion, normal to have a high conflict relationship. Whatever the reason, whether there's abuse involved or it's simply you can't have any type of discussion about anything without it blowing up into a World War II kind of interaction that leaves you feeling traumatized. You get an emotional hangover from the fight and you're doing a lot of crying. You see, that's not part of a healthy relationship. I really believe that. And I think that we are settling when we are in a relationship where we think, you know, all this fighting and crying and pain and conflict is normal. That this is just what all relationships are like. I don't think so. If things are getting ugly and escalating from 0 to 60, like in the blink of an eye, someone is reactive, someone's not taking ownership, and someone is not regulated. Now, of course, both people need to be learning communication, how to start up a conversation, how to address certain issues that aren't about blaming the other person. It's taking ownership for our side of the street. But then where our job ends is how we communicate something, and then we have to allow the other one to pick up from there, and they need skills in order to do that. Okay, so then that leads into the next two is someone that can take accountability, which means you're right, I can see why that would feel that way, or I told you I was going to do this and I didn't, you're right. It's just taking that accountability of like, yeah, I can own my part. And on top of that, they can take criticism. So Robert Greene, he's the author of some pretty profound books. And he said something in a video I watched the other day where he said, I think the biggest sign of a good character is someone that can take criticism well. That if someone can't take criticism without blowing up, without saying something nasty back, without it turning into a big fight, that is a huge character defect. And I really believe that. That doesn't mean that taking criticism is easy and comfortable. In the moment, maybe it's not. But then you're able to stop and reflect on it and go, they actually had a point there. And
This holiday season, experience peace and joy at WorldGate Spa. Indulge in our 50-minute peppermint massage enhanced with complimentary hot stones for the ultimate relaxation. Or give the gift of serenity with a spa gift card, including up to $100 in spa credit. Treat yourself or someone you love to the perfect holiday escape. Schedule your appointment today.
Can reflect on that, and then I can go back into the conversation and realize, you're right, I was short, or I was not in a good mood, and I apologize for that. Here's maybe what was going on with me, and here's what I'm going to do differently next time, that kind of thing. But if you have someone that cannot take any negative criticism, that is a huge problem, especially when it comes to an intimate relationship. The next is teamwork. So it's this mentality of, hey, what needs doing? How can we work together here to reach the goal of whatever needs to be done? There's a sense of we're in this together, and that you're there to support each other, that there is someone there that has your back, and your problem is a both problem. It's a tackle it together problem. And I think this is a really big one, that it should come from both, but I do think that most women want a man that does go into problem solving when it's necessary, when there's issues and they are trying to find a solution for you or for the problem. I love that. To me, that is super attractive, to have a resourceful guy that finds an answer, finds solutions, finds a way. And a lot of women, and this might be you are used to a passive person in your life. They're very passive. They leave a lot of things for you to figure out on your own. You don't feel supported. You don't feel like you have someone there that has your back. You feel alone in the relationship and with your problems and with challenges. And what is the point of a relationship if that is your experience? The next one is they are supportive of you and your growth. So they encourage you, they push you to grow, they support you in that growth. And you just have a general feeling that they have your back, that they're behind you, and they are, they have your best interest at heart, really. It's not this feeling like you've got somebody that's secretly working against you or actively working against you. You know that this person is supportive of you and they do genuinely want all the best for you. The next is they clean up after themselves. Wow, right? We think that men are just bad at picking up after themselves, or men are daft, or men are stupid, that they don't understand that if they cook a meal that they should clean up after themselves instead of leave it for you, or not leave their empty cans all over the place, or dirty crap on the floor, or whatever it might be, that they're making more work for you, and that should just be okay. So that right there is a huge red flag of the entitlement mentality. And that is selfishness. Because if I go around and just throw my stuff all over and leave messes just waiting for someone else to pick it up, what does that make me? Right? And yet us women, we end up being the one that takes on the bulk of all of that. And that doesn't mean that maybe you aren't taking on more of the homemaking and the housekeeping and the grocery shopping and the meal planning and all that. But what it does mean is that they're not making more work for you on top of that. And they are, back to the teamwork, is there anything I can do to help? They're there to help clean up. They're there to tackle whatever needs tackling together. One person isn't working harder. You're just doing different things maybe to support your lives and support your household. So it should feel like there is a balance there where you're both feeling supported in whatever it is that you're doing. And the last is childcare. They're not babysitting your children, and they're not helping you by cleaning up after themselves or cleaning up after their children or taking care of their children. They are doing their bare minimum duty as a father to look after their children, to have them sometimes, or when you're at work or whatever it might be. It's not a favor to you. How often are you the one that is looking after everything while they carry on and their life is not impacted? This is a really common thing that I think we women realize, is that we have children, everything changes for us. Our body, our hormones, everything changes. We are up breastfeeding. We have to keep up with the physical demands of breastfeeding and being on demand 24/7 to feed our babies. And often what happens is that the man's life is not really impeded much at all beyond he's maybe not getting enough sleep, but he's still got to get up and go to work the next day. Just throwing a scenario out. Of course, there's different scenarios that can play out in that. But this one's I think it's a pretty common one. And they still get to plan their weekend, whatever it is, go to their hobbies and keep doing the things that they want to do because they've got a live-in childcare center in their home. So why would it impact them? And this is a big problem. And we have to take ownership for how we've allowed that to happen as well. When we just slowly give up more and more and more of who we are, we give up our relationships, our friendships, our hobbies, our interests, taking time for ourselves. And then our children become our whole lives. And then you get into your 40s and you get a divorce and everything is changing and your children are no longer children, they're adults. And they're not around as much. They don't need you as much. And then you feel like you have no use. And that can be a real dark night of the soul. Like, wow, I just put more than half my life toward this. And now what? And then what I have seen with women will say when they get a divorce, that their life, again, completely just gets blown up in so many different ways. And yet the other person is able to just get a clean cut, walk away, start anew, get a new partner, have a new life, maybe some new children, just kind of pick up and transfer themselves to a new family and leaving the family that they created originally in the dirt or in the dust, right? And that's a really common one as well that I have heard and seen. And so this really just goes back again to we have to be looking out for ourselves. Ladies, we have to be watching out for ourselves and asking, what am I in this for? What am I really receiving? What am I getting out of this relationship that I couldn't be getting on my own? And even if that's just peace, you want to get to this place where, and I came up with this the other day. I was just I was just not feeling well. I'm just getting over a virus. And it came to me this thing of you can get into this addictive high and low from these extreme emotional ups and downs and these toxic dynamics. But then when you start to heal, and you start to calm down and you start to have more alone time and really relish your alone time, then you start to become addicted to peace. And I think that can become a bit of a problem because, your tolerance for chaos and noise and loud and just all of it, small talk, chit chat, just even getting together with other people can be really low because you've spent so long in survival mode. You spent so long in fight or flight that you just want peace. And so again, I should have added this to the bare minimum list, that it brings you peace. The relationship should be a place of peace. It should not be causing chaos. It should not be adding more conflict into your life and ups and downs and tears and uncertainty and confusion. It should not be bringing any of those things. That is bare minimum. That doesn't mean you don't have differences of opinion, or that maybe you're not doing things that annoy each other, or that there maybe are some things that need to be talked about and worked through and hopefully changed if it's going to work. But it should never get ugly. It should never get to where you have to recover from it. So I hope this has given you some clarity. I think, when we have had enough toxic treatment in our lives, maybe starting in our formative years. If you had abuse in your formative years, you need to get therapy for that, for sure. This is not to say that you shouldn't get therapy, but it's getting the right kind of therapy to address those things so you can live more fully present in the now. And then this more healed, evolved, awakened version of you, it tackles the day-to-day from this new place of empowerment, this new place of clarity and understanding that anything that's going to bring chaos into my life is not going to work for me now. And that starts to create a ripple effect in other areas of life, in your work, in your parenting, with your friendships, in your body. What brings chaos into my body? What doesn't feel good when I'm eating? What are foods that don't make me feel good? What type of exercise do I need to have? And what type of friendships and what type of conversations am I having? And it just becomes this thing where you're constantly living in the question of, like, what now? What do I need right now? What am I being asked to do now to take me to that next level? And if you are settling for bare minimum, that is going to create a ripple effect in every area of your life, relationships, work, and body. 100% guaranteed. So when we are settling in a relationship as women for a man that's bringing nothing but chaos, stress, anxiety, pain into our lives, with the occasional, that 10%, the nice stuff when it works for them, you cannot mother well. You cannot have a healthy body or hormonal system. Your work is going to suffer. Your passion will suffer. You will get depressed. All of those things for sure are going to happen when you are settling for bare minimum in a relationship. There's no way around it. And so I want you to thrive. I want you to know what it's like to operate in your life from a place of grounded peace, from a place of knowing what direction to take things because you're so in tune with your body to know where it is you need to go, rather than in reactive mode, operating from this anxious sense of urgency all the time, reactive. You just feel on edge all the time. You can't make good decisions from that place. And so you have to start bringing in some mindfulness, bringing in some self-connection, bringing in new practices. And when women come into my mentoring program and I have them working on all these things, it's interesting because I've worked enough with women over the last 6 years in the same program to see how women respond to what they're coming into differently. And this isn't a judgment, it's more of an observation, because there could be one woman that is overwhelmed, she's rushed, she's frantic, she's feeling like there's too much work. How am I going to fit in all this stuff? How am I going to take this time for me? I'm too busy, all of that, and it becomes a stressor. And then there will be another woman that's like, holy shit, Leanne, I just got through it and my mind is blown. I've changed this, I've done this, I got this from it, I did this, I did. It can literally be those extremes. And that goes to show you that everything we do in life comes from our own interpretation. Yes, our environments. And, obviously work schedules can factor in and all this, but we all have the same 24 hours in a day. And I have seen some very busy, overwhelmed women show up and do the work. And then I see women that shut down in the face of overwhelm, or they shut down in the face of having to do something differently. Because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to start trying on new things and, jumping into something where you're required to have to grow and stretch out of your comfort zone. But it's the only way to grow. And so we have to get uncomfortable. We have to do the things that we're kind of dreading. We have to do the things that feel uncomfortable and scary and foreign in order to grow. And you may have been in this survival mode, this comfort mode, even though it's uncomfortable. You're comfortably uncomfortable because it's what you know. And then you shake it up and you start doing some other things, and then you're having to adjust to this new normal. And it can create more anxiety. It can create that feeling of panic or overwhelm because you're up leveling, and it can be part of the transformation. But if you don't have the right mentorship to guide you, to teach you these things, you might think, oh, I'm getting all this anxiety and it's uncomfortable, so that means I need to stop, or I'm going to freak out, or I'm going to react, or blame other people, or whatever your go-to is when you're overwhelmed. And instead, go deeper into it. Go deeper into what's coming up for you as you're trying to create life change. All right, so this kind of went off on a different tangent, but let's go back. Coming back to the original point is stop fighting for the bare minimum. You are fighting for what should just be a given. And I hope this has helped you in some way, and that you've taken something from this that can help you, and apply it and realize it and know it, and then see it for what it really is. And then watch yourself. Start to watch yourself, what you're doing in this relationship. And this is where, when women take my hero class, it's breaking the hero patterns, the helping, enabling, rescuing, and overfunctioning. And it is part of the Relationship Clarity Bootcamp. You can click the link in the show notes here to join that if you'd like to sign up. And the first video you get access to is that class on how to break your hero patterns. And then you start to see, and you're like, why am I doing this? We have to be able to stop and go, how did I get into this? And why am I still here? And it's getting worse, and it's clearly fucked up. And yet here I am still thinking, oh, if he changes, if it works out, if this, I wish, maybe, I hope. When all you've ever experienced is toxicity, fighting, chaos, fuckery, and it's only getting worse. And here you are still entertaining the thought that this could actually get any better, when meanwhile he's an alcoholic, he's gambling, he's wasting family money, he's abusing the children, he is abusing you, he's yelling, he's creating chaos in the home. And then you still think somewhere in there that there's hope. It's time to wake up. And I invite you to get started on that awakening journey by signing up for that Relationship Clarity Bootcamp, because you will get a lot out of it. It's very in-depth, and in fact, I really should be charging for it, and I will be, because it is that good. But for now, it is free to join, and you can head to the link in the show notes to save your spot.